Hey Rangers, in this video we're going to talk about domain and range of linear functions. So first thing we need to know is how to determine if we have a closed circle or an open circle. So what we mean by a closed circle is on a graph you will see something looking like this, which means it's included. Okay, so the inequality signs that go with this would be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. For an open circle, you will see something that looks like this. This is not included. And it will go with less than or greater than. So we're going to break this down piece by piece. I want to focus on just the domain right now. So we know domain is our x values. If we forgot, we have Dr. XY to help us. Okay, and it tells us that domain is our x values. So we're just matching the domain to the inequality signs. So if I look at my answer choices, I can automatically eliminate A because it has a Y. So the answers that I'm looking for are going to have an X in the center. So I have B, C, or D. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to look at the x-axis and see how I can crop my graph to fit, okay, just the graph. So if I look and I go to crop it, I can crop it right here, and I can crop it right here. Okay, so notice how I got rid of all of this extra space. I don't need any of that extra X space right there. So I cropped the graph. Okay, so where did I crop it to? It started at -6 and it went to +8. So if I'm looking at my answer choices, I can eliminate answer choice C because it's -2 to 5. So we don't want that answer choice. Okay, so now I need to determine which inequality sign to use. So if I look at the ones that I have left, the only difference between them is this inequality sign right here. Okay, so if we look, this one right here and this one right here both have a line underneath, which means we have a closed circle. Well, at -6, I did have a closed circle. So now I go and look at the other circle, which is open. And remember, an open circle has no line underneath. Okay, so I need to choose the one that has no line underneath, which would be answer choice D. Okay, next to the 8, there is no line underneath, so B is eliminated. So my answer is D as in dog. Okay, now I'm going to switch over to the range. We know that the range is our Y values. Again, Dr. XY tells us that. So again, we're going to only focus on numbers from the Y-axis, which means my possible answer choices are A, E, and F. Okay, so again, we need to crop the graph to get rid of any extra space. Crop the graph to get rid of any extra space. We only want our graph, so this would all be eliminated. Okay, so again, notice how when I cropped it, it only shows my graph and nothing more. Okay, and it includes my whole graph. So now it's looking a little messy, so let's get rid of some of these crazy squiggly lines that I got. Oops. Okay, so now we're focusing on the y-axis only. The y-axis only. Okay, so on the y-axis, it is going through 5 and -2. And we always go from smallest to biggest. Okay, if you notice, these are always the smallest numbers, and these are always the big numbers. Okay, so it's going from -2 to 5. Well, A is an option, E is an option, but F is going from -6 to 8, so that is not an option. Okay, again, the only difference is this inequality sign here, which tells us we need to know this is an open circle, which means it has no line, which would give us answer choice E. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, notice how this only has 1 point and then arrows. 1 point and an arrow. So we're going to start by looking at the x-axis for the domain. which means I can look at B, C, and F. So if I'm looking at that, I notice right here that it would cross at -5, okay, which means I can eliminate answer choice B because it has -3. Now I have to understand that my graph as x values is growing. Okay, all of the x values are getting bigger than -5. So I want to select the answer choice that is saying x is greater than or equal to, because we have a closed circle, to -5. So that means it will be opening up towards the x, which means my answer is F. Okay, my x values are growing in this case. Now, as I look at the y-axis for the range, okay, again, I'm only looking for y values. So here's my y-axis. I notice it's crossing the y-axis at 3, and all of my y values are going down. They're getting smaller than 3. So looking at my answer choices, I can eliminate E because it uses the wrong inequality symbol, and it's -5, and we want it to be +3. So now in this case, all my y values are getting less than or smaller than 3, which means it needs to be opening up towards the 3. So my answer would be A. Okay, looking at the last one, I notice that I have 2 arrows, okay, on both sides, which means it is going in every direction, but let's focus at one thing at a time. So as far as the x-axis goes, my domain, it is always going to the left and it is always going to the right, so it's covering all of the numbers, which would tell me all real numbers is my answer. Okay, if I'm looking at the range, the y values on the y-axis, it is always going down and it's always going up, so again, it would be all real numbers. So if you have any questions, make sure you make note of them in the left-hand column and be sure to ask your teacher. Have a great day, Rangers.